just my mother and my sister and I. We were just waiting for a chance to go to the United States. My father left Russia when I was only 6 months old. And then the war, and he was supposed to follow him. The war broke out, and so we got stuck until I was almost 10 years old.
Tell me about life in Wroblaw.
Well, it was a typical shtetl life that you read about and hear about in Shalom Aleichem stories. Small town. Maybe I don't know how many Yiddish families there were. I wasn't aware of it. And I remember the house we stayed in. Who was it? I remember the house we stayed in was located near the river. It's called a teich. And we were quite a number of Yiddish families in that particular town. As a matter of fact, they had 2 synagogues. And we called people who lived near our part of the town was called Demek, and the other part of the town where there was the second synagogue was called Yenemek. In other words, this end or the other end. That's the way they always refer to the different parts of the town. And whatever exposure I had to religion, Judaism, and so forth, I got primarily, of course, from my mother, who was strictly a kosher woman. I got from her. It was her uncle, really, who took me. He used to take me to the synagogue all the time, every time he went. When I became, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 years old, I started cheder. Cheder is a place where you, that's all the education that I was exposed to. Now, over there they had one teacher who taught different grades. And we'd go there the first thing in the morning until it got dark. And he would start you off with, he would start the small ones off, like myself, with the alphabet and so forth, and teach you the elements, the elementary stuff. And then he had older kids that he taught a little bit more advanced stuff. And he would, each one he would call up and he would get individual instruction from him. And this was my exposure to Hebrew while I was in Europe. And from there, after the war, my mother received some money, and we started the long trip to come to the United States. It was a slow process. We must have been on the road maybe almost a year, because from there we went. It was by degrees. From there we went to.
This was about what year?
Oh, I don't know. It must have been since we came here in 1921. That I know for sure. It must have been maybe 1919 or 1920. Oh, yeah, we came early in 1921. Must have been probably 1919, because we went from Odra, we went to Pinsk. In Pinsk we stayed a number of months.
How did you get there, by train?
But no. We horse and wagon. Now in Pinsk we stayed with a family from
you rented
that we knew from Odra. We stayed with them. And then when we received a little bit more help and more encouragement, we went on from there. We went to Warsaw. That, of course, to Warsaw you go by train. It's quite a distance from Pinsk, and it was a long ride. And then we stayed in Warsaw for I don't know how long. It must have been a number of months until we got the visa.
You stayed in a hotel room?
No,
Or?
we stayed. Some Jewish families would take you in. And at that time, the whole, I don't know, hundreds or thousands of Jewish people were just on the move. And those people who lived in different parts of the world along the way, somehow we knew, or it was known, that if you came, let's say, to Warsaw, you go to this and this place, they put you up. And we came there, and there were a number of people traveling like us. And every morning, my mother would go to the American consul and try to get a visa. So it took some doing, because there were always big lines, and you don't get a visa just by coming to the council. It had to be worked through an organization called Hayas, and in this manner, I understand that's how she finally got a visa.
So it was still fairly difficult to get a visa in those days, even,
Yeah.
but not as difficult, I guess,
Although
as today.
my father had arranged with a steamship company for passage, somehow a certain amount of work remained to be done, and that's where the difficulty came in. So anyhow, eventually we got the visa, and the whole group, and by then there was an accumulation of a number of people also from Bulgaria. We used to call them Amerikanske. We used to call my mother an Amerikanske, because when your husband is in the United States, America, and you're there, that's what they called you. So anyhow, from there we went to Danzig, and we had
By
to
train, or?
Yeah, by train. Everywhere you travel, from that point on, it was by train. So stop it for a minute. What is it? Tell me when you're ready.
Okay, anytime.
From Danzig, I don't know, we might have been there 10 days maybe. Then we moved on. I remember for the first time in my life, I was exposed to a shower. They had, everyone had to take a shower, and you had all your hair cut off, because lice was an accepted thing in the old country. Everyone had lice. And at that time, Germany and Danzig, I think, belonged. Danzig was a free city, but it was primarily a German city. They were more advanced as far as hygiene was concerned. So anyone who passed through there had to go through the showers and had their hair cut off completely, which was all right with me, because I normally had my hair cut that way, just cut off the hair completely. And one of the nice things about Danzig that I can remember, my first taste of orange. Something I'd never seen before. They'd have these push carts standing around selling fruits, and the thing that appealed to me most was orange. I liked the smell of it, I liked the taste of it. Whenever I got a hold of the required amount of money, I buy myself an orange. It was a big deal with me.
Where did you get the money from?
I don't know. My mother always had, she used to get help. She used to get money from my father.
She'd give you a little money.
And she would give me what she could. Then from there we went to a place called Le Havre. That's in France. And that's a port, a city. And there we had to wait until the boat, until we were ready to set sail.
All this time, you just spoke to everybody in Yiddish.
Yeah, Yiddish.
Because of all the other Jewish people.
Get along with Yiddish. There were a lot of Jews on the way.
And that's the only language you knew at that time.
The agent who was in charge of the steamship company, who was in charge of this business of getting together these people that were on the way to America. It was regular business, and they, of course, spoke Yiddish. They knew who they had to deal with. So that part was no problem, apparently. And there we waited, I don't know, a number of days. And another first experience I had there was I saw for the first time in my life a black person. And I was amazed. I didn't know there existed such a thing. It was frightening. We didn't know what to make of it. All he did was laugh. As a man. Anyhow, finally, we got on the boat. It was, I'll never forget, I even remember the name because I had occasion to look it up. The name of the ship was called Melita.
Is it an Italian ship?
I don't know. It was Italian or what, but it was called Melita. It might have been Italian. No, well, it came from France, so I don't know.
Okay.
Anyhow, apparently it wasn't much of a, it wasn't a very big ship because I can remember how it rocked in the sea. Of course, we traveled, I don't know how long, 10 days or longer, across the Atlantic. And it was in January, so you can imagine that it wasn't a good time of the year. But anyhow, I remember sitting on one end and feeling that the end rise real high and go down. But I did not get seasick. I somehow was able to stand the motion of the boat much better than the rest. Because most of the people, my mother and my sister got sick right away. And although the first day on the ship, we were, everybody was in the dining room at the appointed time and ready to eat. Of course, the food was very simple, mostly herring and so forth, which I liked anyhow. Then the very next day, people started getting sick, and you saw less and less people come to the lunchroom. So I would eat and then take for my mother and my sister whatever I could get away with, and mostly herring, and to them. They couldn't eat because they were sick. So I was left pretty much to myself, and I roamed around the boat. I remember going down below and until I got to the engine room. And of course, once they saw me, they chased me up again.
Was this a many-class boat, like it had first class and steerage? And...
Well, they might have had different classes. But I know that we must have gone steerage because we would go way down to our cabin. Couldn't see. There was no windows, no nothing. Some cubby hole somewhere where we would sleep. But anyhow, so we sailed along, and then as we got fairly close to shore, I don't know what happened. The ship must have hit something, or it began to lean towards one side, and we heard the sirens, the ship's sirens sounding. It sounded alarming just to listen to it, and people didn't know what was going to happen, and the women would say, why are you standing? Why don't you say Tillen? Tillen is sort of a prayer. You're praying to God. And they thought that would help. Anyhow, this condition existed for about